Princess Nari pressed her pale blue hand against the cold crystal wall of her tower room. Far below, she could see the human slaves working in the mining fields. They looked like tiny insects from this height, moving slowly under the hot alien sun. The sight made her stomach feel strange, though she could not understand why. "You should not watch them," said her servant Hana as she entered the room with breakfast. Hana was also Velanthi, with the same blue skin and large dark eyes as Nari. "Your mother says it is not proper for a princess." Nari did not move away from the window. "Why do we keep them like that? The humans, I mean." Hana set down the silver tray with a small crash. "Princess, you must not ask such questions. Humans are just animals. They have no real thoughts or feelings." Queen Yuna has explained this many times, but Nari had always felt different from other Velanthi. While her people could read minds and speak without words, Nari's telepathic powers were weak. She often felt alone even when surrounded by others. The other royal children whispered that she was broken, defective. Her mother tried to hide her disappointment, but Nari could sense it anyway. That afternoon, Queen Yuna took Nari on a tour of the palace grounds. They visited the crystal gardens, the quantum laboratories, and finally the work areas where human slaves maintained the palace systems. Yuna walked with perfect grace, her long silver hair flowing behind her royal robes. "Soon you will rule part of our empire," Yuna told her daughter. "You must understand how everything works. The humans serve us because they are simple creatures. They need us to give their lives meaning." Nari nodded, but her eyes kept watching the humans they passed. They moved carefully, keeping their heads down. Their clothes were gray and dirty. Some had metal collars around their necks that blinked with small lights. In the power core room, they stopped to watch a human male working on a complex energy converter. He was tall with dark hair and careful hands. Unlike the others, he did not seem afraid. His movements were precise and confident. Nari found herself staring at him. "That one is called Taiho," Queen Yuna said, noticing her daughter's attention. "He was a soldier before we captured him. He knows about machines and weapons. Very useful, but also dangerous. We had to use special methods to control his mind." As they watched, Taiho looked up from his work. For just a moment, his eyes met Nari's across the room. Something strange happened then. Nari felt a sudden sharp pain in her head, followed by a rush of images and feelings that were not her own. She saw flashes of another world with blue skies and green trees. She felt the warmth of a sun different from theirs. She experienced emotions so strong and clear that they took her breath away. Love for family, anger at injustice, hope for freedom. These were not simple animal thoughts. They were complex, beautiful, and completely human. The connection lasted only seconds before Nari's weak telepathic defenses snapped back into place. But those few seconds changed everything. She stumbled backward, her hand pressed to her forehead. "What is wrong?" Queen Yuna asked, concerned. "Nothing, mother. Just a headache." Nari lied, but her mind was spinning. The human Taiho had somehow broken through her mental barriers. More importantly, what she had seen in his mind proved that everything her people believed about humans was wrong. That night, Nari could not sleep. She kept thinking about Taiho's memories. The love he felt for his lost family was stronger than anything she had ever experienced. The sadness of losing his home world made her chest ache. His determination to resist, even after years of slavery, filled her with a strange new feeling she did not recognize at first. It was respect. Over the following days, Nari began to pay more attention to the humans around the palace. She watched how they worked together, helping each other when the guards were not looking. She saw them share their small portions of food with those who were sick. She noticed the way they communicated with tiny gestures and brief touches, showing kindness even under the watchful eyes of their captors. Slowly, Nari realized that her people had created a terrible lie. Humans were not animals. They were people with rich inner lives, deep emotions, and strong bonds with each other. The Velanthi had enslaved an entire intelligent species and convinced themselves it was right. The thought made Nari feel sick and angry. But it also made her want to do something about it. She began to plan. As a princess, she had access to many areas of the palace. She could learn about the security systems, the guard schedules, and the transportation networks. Most importantly, she could find ways to help the humans. But first, she needed to contact Taiho again. The brief mental connection they had shared was unlike anything she had experienced before. She sensed that he was different from the other slaves, stronger somehow. If anyone could help her understand what to do, it would be him. 3 weeks after their first encounter, Nari found her chance. She volunteered to inspect the power core maintenance, claiming she wanted to learn more about palace operations. Queen Yuna was pleased by her daughter's sudden interest in royal duties. When Nari entered the power core room, Taiho was there again, working alone on a complex control panel. She approached slowly, her heart beating fast. When she was close enough to whisper, she spoke in the human language she had been secretly learning. "I know you can understand me," she said quietly. "I know you are not what my people think you are." Taiho's hands stopped moving. He did not look at her, but she saw his shoulders tense. "I want to help," Nari continued. "I saw your memories. I know the truth about humans now. Tell me how to help." Slowly, Taiho turned to face her. His eyes were cautious but alert. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Why would the daughter of our oppressor want to help us?" "Because keeping people as slaves is wrong," Nari said simply. "And because I think we could be allies instead of enemies." Taiho studied her face for a long moment. Then very carefully he lowered his mental defenses just enough for their minds to touch again. This time the connection was gentler but deeper. Nari saw more of his memories, his training as an engineer, his knowledge of both human and Volanthi technology, his secret network of resistance fighters among the slaves. In return, Taiho saw her loneliness, her growing doubts about her people's ways, and her genuine desire to make things right. He saw that she was telling the truth. "If you really want to help," he said finally, "then you need to be prepared to give up everything. Your title, your family, your comfortable life. The only way to truly help my people is to join us completely." Nari looked around the power core room, thinking of her crystal tower and silk robes and royal privileges. Then she thought of the humans working in the hot sun, wearing metal collars, never seeing their families again. "I understand," she said. "Tell me what I need to do." Taiho taught Nari how to hide her thoughts from other Volanthi. It was harder than she expected. For weeks she practiced building mental walls while acting normal around her mother and the palace staff. Every day she found small ways to help the human slaves without being noticed. She left extra food near their work areas. She made sure broken equipment was replaced quickly so they would not be punished for delays. Most importantly, she began to map the palace security systems and guard rotations. "The collars are the biggest problem," Taiho explained during one of their secret meetings. "They do not just track our location, they also suppress our ability to think clearly. Without them, humans can remember who they used to be." Nari had stolen information about the collar technology from the royal computer systems. The devices were more cruel than she had imagined. They did not just control behavior, they actually damaged human memory and emotion over time. "I can get the deactivation codes," she said, "but we need a bigger plan. If we just remove a few collars, the guards will notice." "We have been thinking about that for years," Taiho said. "There are 300 humans in this facility. If we could free even half of them at once, we could take control of the transport ships and escape to the outer moons." The plan they developed was dangerous. Nari would need to create a major distraction, while Taiho and his allies disabled the collars and overpowered the guards. The hardest part would be making it look like an accident, so the other Volanthi facilities would not increase their security. Nari decided to fake her own death. It was the only way to escape suspicion and join the humans permanently. If everyone believed she was dead, no one would look for her among the escaped slaves. She spent months preparing. Using her royal access, she gathered supplies and hid them in unused storage areas. She studied the guard schedules until she knew them perfectly. Most importantly, she learned everything she could about the transport ships and navigation systems. The night of the escape, Nari felt more afraid than she had ever been in her life. She also felt more alive. For the first time, she was doing something that truly mattered. She started by overloading the power grid in her tower. The explosion was loud enough to wake half the palace. As guards rushed to investigate, Nari slipped out through maintenance tunnels she had mapped weeks earlier. She left behind enough genetic material to convince investigators that she had died in the blast. Meanwhile, Taiho was moving through the slave quarters with a small device Nari had built. It sent out a signal that temporarily disabled the control collars. One by one, humans throughout the facility began to remember who they really were. The change was amazing to watch. Faces that had been blank and empty suddenly filled with intelligence and purpose. Voices that had only spoken in obedient whispers began to plan and organize. These were not animals awakening. They were soldiers, engineers, doctors, teachers, and parents remembering their true selves. But the guards noticed the disruption quickly. Alarms began to sound throughout the facility. Security forces rushed toward the slave quarters with weapons and backup collar controls. The battle was brief but intense. The humans had the advantage of surprise and determination. Many of them remembered military training from before their capture. They used mining tools as weapons and turned the facility's own systems against the guards. Nari, disguised in stolen worker clothes and with her skin artificially darkened, fought alongside them. Her knowledge of palace security codes allowed the humans to lock down entire sections and trap their former captors. The transport bay. Tejo shouted over the noise of the fight. "We need to reach the ships before they call for backup." The group moved as one unit through corridors Nari knew by heart. She led them through shortcuts and hidden passages, avoiding the main security checkpoints. Behind them, they could hear Valanthi reinforcements arriving at the palace. In the transport bay, 6 small ships waited. They were designed to carry supplies to the mining stations, but they could hold humans if everyone squeezed together. Tejo quickly checked the engines while other humans loaded supplies they had grabbed during the escape. "Can you pilot these?" he asked Nari. "I have been practicing on the simulators," she said, "but I have never flown a real ship." "Then we will learn together." The first ship lifted off just as Valanthi security forces broke into the transport bay. Energy weapons fired at the escaping vessels, but the pilots kept the ships moving and dodging. One ship was hit and crash-landed in the palace gardens, but the other 5 made it to space. Nari piloted the lead ship with Tejo beside her, teaching her the controls she had only read about. Behind them, 50 humans celebrated their first taste of freedom in years. Some were crying. Others were laughing. All of them were finally alive again. "Where do we go now?" Nari asked as they flew away from the planet. "Kitos," Tejo said. "It is a dead moon in the outer system. We have been building a hidden base there for 3 years. The journey took 2 days. During the flight, Nari learned more about the human resistance than she had ever imagined. There were thousands of humans scattered across dozens of hidden bases throughout Valanthi space. They had been planning, preparing, and waiting for the right moment to strike back. "You have given us something we never had before," Tejo told her as they approached Kitos. "Access to Valanthi technology and information. With your help, we can do more than just survive. We can actually fight back." Kitos looked like a dead rock from space, but inside its core, the humans had built something wonderful. Tunnels and chambers carved from solid stone-housed workshops, living areas, and command centers. Hundreds of humans worked together, building weapons, ships, and communication equipment. When Nari walked into the main assembly hall, every conversation stopped. Humans stared at her blue skin and alien features with expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion to outright hostility. "This is Princess Nari," Tejo announced. "She helped us escape. She wants to join our cause." An older human woman named So Young stepped forward. She had been a general before her capture, and now she led the resistance forces on Kitos. "Why should we trust the daughter of our oppressor?" So Young asked bluntly. Nari had expected this question. She understood their suspicion. Instead of making speeches, she simply opened her mind and let them see her memories. Through their growing mental connection with Tejo, some of the humans could sense her true feelings. They saw her loneliness in the palace. They felt her shock at discovering the truth about human intelligence. They experienced her determination to make things right, even if it cost her everything. Slowly, the hostility in the room changed to acceptance. These humans had suffered terribly, but they were still capable of recognizing genuine remorse and a desire for justice. "What can you offer us?" So Young asked. "Everything I know about Valanthi technology, security systems, and military plans," Nari said. "I can help you build better weapons and ships. I can teach you how to disable the control systems that keep other humans enslaved. Most importantly, I can help you think like Valanthi so you can predict what they will do next." Over the following weeks, Nari proved her worth. Working with Tejo and the other human engineers, she helped design new weapons that could penetrate Valanthi shields. She taught them how to hack into Imperial communication networks. She shared everything she knew about palace defenses and fleet movements. But more than her knowledge, Nari brought something else to the resistance: hope. Her presence proved that not all Valanthi supported the Empire's cruel policies. If one princess could change her mind, others might follow. The mental connection between Nari and Tai-Ho continued to grow stronger. They found they could share thoughts and ideas with increasing clarity. When they worked together on technical problems, their combined abilities allowed them to solve challenges that neither could handle alone. "I have never felt anything like this," Tai-Ho told her one evening as they sat in the observation dome, watching the stars. "Nor have I," Nari admitted. "My people would say it is impossible. But I think we are creating something new, a bridge between our species. Is that what you want? To be a bridge?" Nari considered the question seriously. Below them, humans and one Volanthi worked side by side, building a future where both species might be free. It was not the life she had been born to live, but it was the life she chose. "Yes," she said finally. "I think that is exactly what I want to be." 6 months after the escape from the palace, the hidden base on Kitos had grown into a small city. More humans arrived every week, rescued from mining facilities and work camps across the sector. Nari and Tai-Ho had become the heart of the resistance, their combined knowledge creating weapons and technology the Volanthi had never seen before. "Look at this," Tai-Ho said, showing Nari the latest reports. "We have freed over 2,000 humans in the past month. The Volanthi are starting to notice." Nari studied the intelligence data they had gathered. "My mother has assigned Commander Wu Jin to investigate the disappearances. He is dangerous because he truly believes cooperation with the Volanthi is the only way humans can survive." Wu Jin had been captured as a child and raised by Volanthi families. Unlike other human slaves, he had been given education and training. He now led special security forces made up of humans who served the Empire willingly. To Nari, he represented everything wrong with her people's system. The mental bond between Nari and Tai-Ho had evolved into something unprecedented. They could now share not just thoughts, but actual abilities. When Nari interfaced with Volanthi technology, Tai-Ho could understand the alien systems through their connection. When Tai-Ho worked on engineering problems, Nari could see solutions her royal education had never taught her. "We need to test the new ships," So Young said during their morning briefing. "The Volanthi will send a major force soon. We have to be ready to fight or run." Nari had helped design these ships using both human and Volanthi technology. They were faster than anything in the Imperial fleet, and armed with weapons that could disrupt Volanthi shields. But they had never been tested in real combat. "I have an idea," Nari said. "There is a prison transport that passes through the Zarian system every 2 weeks. It carries humans from the capture worlds to the work camps. If we could intercept it, that is exactly the kind of target Wu Jin would expect us to hit," Tai-Ho warned. "It could be a trap." "Then we make sure we are ready for a trap," Nari replied. The mission launched 3 days later. Nari and Tai-Ho led a squadron of 6 ships toward the Zarian system, while So Young remained on Kitos to coordinate backup plans. The new ships performed perfectly, their hybrid engines allowing them to travel faster than any Volanthi pursuit. They found the prison transport exactly where Nari had predicted. It was a massive vessel surrounded by 2 escort ships. Inside its cargo hold, sensors showed the heat signatures of nearly 800 human prisoners. "Something is wrong," Tai-Ho said as they approached. "The escort ships are too powerful for a routine transport mission." Nari reached out with her enhanced telepathic abilities, trying to scan the Volanthi crews. What she found made her blood turn cold. "It is a trap," she said. "Wu Jin is on the lead escort. He has been using human prisoners as bait." Before they could retreat, the escort ships opened fire. But these were not standard Volanthi weapons. The energy beams were designed specifically to disrupt the hybrid technology Nari and Tai-Ho had developed. "He knows our capabilities," Tai-Ho said, as he maneuvered their ship through the attack. "Someone has been feeding him information about our technology." The battle was fierce. The resistance ships were faster and more maneuverable, but the Volanthi had firepower and numbers. Worse, they seemed to anticipate every tactic the humans tried. During the fight, something unexpected happened. As Nari and Tai-Ho worked together to control their ship's systems, their mental connection suddenly expanded. Instead of just sharing thoughts, they began to share control of the ship itself. Their combined consciousness interfaced directly with both human and Volanthi technology in ways neither species had achieved alone. The change gave them abilities that bordered on miraculous. They could predict enemy movements, calculate firing solutions instantly, and even begin to take control of Volanthi systems from a distance. Their ship danced through the battle like it was alive, striking with impossible precision. "What is happening to us?" Taiho asked as they disabled one of the escort ships with a perfectly placed shot. "I do not know," Nari replied, "but I think we are becoming something new." The other resistance pilots watched in amazement as Nari and Taiho's ship single-handedly turned the tide of battle. They rescued the human prisoners and captured one of the escort vessels intact. But their victory came with a disturbing discovery. Among the prisoners was Dr. Min Ho, a human scientist who had been working on the hybrid technology project. He had been captured 2 weeks earlier during a raid on one of their supply bases. "They did not just interrogate me," he told Nari and Taiho during the flight back to Kitos. "They scanned my memories directly. They know about our weapons, our ship designs, even the location of some of our smaller bases." "But not Kitos?" Taiho asked. "No, not yet. But they will keep trying until they find it." Back at the base, the resistance leadership faced a terrible decision. The Volanthi now knew too much about their operations. They could either abandon their hidden sanctuary or prepare for a massive attack. "We have rescued over 3,000 humans," So Young said during the emergency meeting. "We cannot just run and leave the others behind." "And we cannot fight the entire Volanthi fleet," argued another commander. "Even with our new technology, we are outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Nari listened to the debate with growing frustration. Finally, she stood and spoke. "There is another option," she said. "We stop hiding and start recruiting. Not just humans, but Volanthi who might be willing to listen to the truth." The room fell silent. The idea of trying to convert their oppressors seemed impossible. "My people are not evil," Nari continued. "They have been taught lies about humans just as I was. If we could show them the truth, some would join us. I am certain of it." "And how do you propose we do that?" So Young asked. "The same way Taiho showed me," Nari said. "Through direct mental contact. Through letting them experience human thoughts and emotions for themselves." Taiho understood immediately. "You want to use our connection as a template. Teach other humans and Volanthi to form similar bonds." "It is possible," Nari said. "What we have created together is not unique to us. Any human with sufficient mental discipline could learn to connect with a willing Volanthi. And any Volanthi who experiences true human consciousness will understand that the Empire is built on lies." The plan was ambitious and dangerous. They would need to identify Volanthi who might be sympathetic, make contact without being discovered, and convince them to risk everything for the sake of an enslaved species. But it was also their only hope of creating lasting change. Military victories could free individual humans, but only changing Volanthi society itself could end the oppression permanently. "Where do we start?" Dr. Min Ho asked. Nari smiled for the first time since the battle. "With my mother's own court. There are Volanthi nobles who have private doubts about the Empire's policies. If we could reach even one of them—" "That means going back," Taiho said quietly. "Back to the palace world." "Yes," Nari agreed. "But not as prisoners. As teachers." As they began to plan their most dangerous mission yet, Nari felt the mental bond she shared with Taiho pulse with new strength. Together they were becoming something neither human nor Volanthi alone could be. They were becoming the bridge between worlds that the galaxy desperately needed. The question was whether they could build that bridge fast enough to prevent a war that would destroy both species. Outside the base, Volanthi warships were already beginning to gather in nearby systems. Commander Wu Jin had convinced Queen Yuna that the human rebellion posed a serious threat to Imperial stability. The response would be overwhelming and final. The race for the future of both species had begun. The mission to reach the palace world required perfect timing and enormous risk. Nari and Taiho disguised themselves as merchants bringing rare crystals to the royal court. Their ship was one of the new hybrid designs, but modified to look like an ordinary trading vessel. "Remember," Nari told Taiho as they approached the palace spaceport, "you are my human assistant. Keep your thoughts shielded and let me do all the talking." The disguise worked perfectly. Palace security was looking for escaped slaves and rebel ships, not a Volanthi merchant with proper identification codes. Nari used her knowledge of court protocols to request an audience with Lord Hyunwoo, a noble she remembered having doubts about human policies. Lord Hyunwoo received them in his private chambers, interested in the rare crystals they claimed to sell. He was an older Volanthi with kind eyes and a reputation for fairness in his dealings with humans. "These crystals are remarkable," he said, examining their samples. Where did you acquire them? From a human mining operation, Nari said carefully. The workers there were quite skilled. More skilled than I expected. She watched his reaction closely. Lord Hyunwoo's expression shifted slightly, showing the kind of discomfort she had hoped to see. You seem surprised by human abilities, she continued. Have you noticed this in your own holdings? Lord Hyunwoo hesitated. Yes. Sometimes I wonder if we underestimate them. They solve problems in ways our experts cannot predict. They show loyalty to each other that seems to go beyond simple animal instinct. This was the opening Nari needed. Would you like to see for yourself? To really understand what humans are capable of? Before Lord Hyunwoo could ask what she meant, Nari reached out with her mind and gently touched his thoughts. At the same time, she opened the connection she shared with Taiho, allowing the Volanthi Lord to experience human consciousness directly. The effect was immediate and powerful. Lord Hyunwoo gasped as he felt Taiho's memories, emotions, and thoughts flowing through the mental link. He experienced human love, hope, creativity, and determination as if they were his own feelings. This is impossible, he whispered. Humans cannot think like this. They can and do, Nari said gently. Every human you have ever seen has thoughts and feelings just as complex as your own. We have been telling ourselves lies to justify enslaving an intelligent species. Lord Hyunwoo staggered backward, his worldview crumbling. If this is true, then everything we have done is wrong, Nari finished. But it can be changed. You can help us change it. The conversation was interrupted by a commotion outside. Through the windows they could see Volanthi guards rushing through the palace courtyards. Emergency alarms were beginning to sound. We have to go, Taiho said urgently. They have found us. But as they prepared to flee, something extraordinary happened. From deep within the palace, Nari sensed familiar mental signatures. Powerful ancient minds were awakening from long sleep. The Primarchs, she breathed. They are real. Lord Hyunwoo's eyes widened. The Primarchs are myths. Stories from the old times. No, Nari said as the mental signatures grew stronger. They are real, and they are waking up. The first Primarch to emerge was Elder Kyung-suk, a being so old that her memories stretched back to the founding of Volanthi civilization. She appeared in the palace throne room like a ghost made solid, her ancient robes flowing around her tall, ethereal form. Queen Yuna was holding court when the elder materialized. The assembled nobles fell silent in shock and fear. Primarchs were legends, beings of such power that they could reshape reality with their thoughts. Daughter of the twisted bloodline, Elder Kyung-suk said, her voice echoing with the weight of millennia. You have strayed far from the true path. You are not real, Queen Yuna said, but her voice shook with uncertainty. The Primarchs are stories told to children. We are the guardians of what you have forgotten, the elder replied. We slept until the ancient bonds began to form again. Until a child of two worlds reminded us why we once chose cooperation over conquest. More Primarchs began to appear throughout the palace. Each one carried knowledge of the time before the Empire, when Volanthi formed partnerships with other species instead of enslaving them. They spoke of hybrid children who bridged different forms of consciousness, of technology that grew from cooperation instead of oppression. Lies, Queen Yuna declared. The Empire made us strong. Cooperation with lesser species weakened our ancestors. Elder Kyung-suk turned her ancient gaze to the Queen. Then you will not object to seeing the truth for yourself. Before Yuna could resist, the elder reached into her mind with power that dwarfed any modern Volanthi's abilities. She forced the Queen to experience human memories, emotions, and thoughts directly. For the first time in her life, Queen Yuna felt what it was like to be enslaved, to lose family members, to struggle for freedom against impossible odds. The psychic assault lasted only seconds, but it left the Queen shattered. She collapsed to her knees, tears streaming down her face as she experienced the pain her empire had caused. Meanwhile, throughout Volanthi space, the awakening of the Primarchs triggered a crisis of faith. Ancient ruins that had been thought decorative began to glow with forgotten power. Hidden records emerged from sealed archives telling the true history of Volanthi civilization. Not all Volanthi accepted these revelations. Many, especially the military commanders, saw the Primarchs as threats to imperial order. They rallied around Commander Wu Jin, who argued that human liberation would lead to chaos and revenge. Even if humans are intelligent, Wu Jin declared to his followers, they will never forgive us for what we have done. Our only choice is to maintain control or face extinction. The Empire began to split along ancient lines. Those who remembered the old ways joined the Primarchs. Those who feared change aligned with the military faction. Civil war erupted across dozens of worlds as Volanthi fought Volanthi for the first time in 1,000 years. On Katos, Nari and Taiho watched the crisis unfold through intercepted communications. Their mission to the palace had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes, but it had also triggered something they could not control. The galaxy is tearing itself apart, So Young observed during an emergency meeting. This could be our chance to free all the remaining humans, but it could also lead to our complete destruction. We have to pick a side, Dr. Minho argued. The Primarchs are offering us everything we wanted. Alliance with them gives us legitimacy. But Nari was troubled by reports from the battlefield. The civil war was not just between Volanthi factions. Some humans, led by collaborators like Wu Jin, were fighting to preserve the Empire. They genuinely believed that change would bring disaster. We cannot just choose the winning side, she told the assembled commanders. We have to find a way to unite everyone. Primarchs, Empire loyalists, humans, Volanthi. Everyone needs to find a path forward together. That is impossible, one of the human generals protested. Too much blood has been shed. Too much pain has been caused. Taiho stood beside Nari, their mental bond stronger than ever. Nothing is impossible if we work together. We have proven that already. As if to demonstrate his point, their combined consciousness reached out across space, touching the minds of humans and Volanthi throughout the war zones. For brief moments, enemies on both sides experienced the same revelation that had changed Lord Hyunwoo. They felt the thoughts and emotions of their opponents, understanding for the first time that they were fighting people just like themselves. The effect was temporary, but it planted seeds of doubt in minds across the galaxy. Soldiers began to hesitate before firing. Commanders questioned their orders. Some units on both sides simply stopped fighting and opened communication channels instead. But the moment of peace was shattered by news that made everyone's blood run cold. Queen Yuna, driven to desperation by the collapse of her empire, had made contact with something from beyond the galaxy. Ancient enemies that fed on consciousness itself were stirring in the void between stars. She has called the void touched, Elder Kyung-suk announced grimly. In her madness, she believes they will help her destroy the rebellion and restore imperial order. What are the void touched? Taiho asked. The elder's ancient face showed fear for the first time. They are why the old alliances were formed. Why humans and Volanthi once worked together. They are the devourers of thought, the enemies of all conscious life. And they are coming. The void touched arrived like a plague of living darkness. Their ships appeared at the edge of Volanthi space without warning, moving in ways that violated the laws of physics. They were not made of matter as other species understood it, but of pure hunger for conscious thought. Queen Yuna had expected them to serve her, to help destroy the rebellion and restore order to her empire. Instead, they began consuming every thinking being they encountered, Volanthi and human alike. Entire worlds went silent as the creatures drained them of all consciousness. She has doomed us all, Elder Kyung-suk said as reports of the devastation reached Kitos. The void touched do not serve anyone. They only consume. Nari felt sick as she watched the destruction spreading across the galaxy. Billions of lives were being snuffed out because of her mother's desperate mistake. But she also sensed something else through her connection with Taiho. They cannot consume us, she said suddenly. The bond we share protects us from them. What do you mean? So Young asked. The void touched feed on individual consciousness, Nari explained. But when minds are truly connected, sharing thoughts and experiences, they become something the creatures cannot digest. That is why the old alliances existed. Cooperation between species created bonds that could resist the void. Taiho understood immediately. We need to connect everyone. Humans, Volanthi, even the Primarchs, create a network of consciousness that spans the galaxy. That is impossible, Commander Wu Jin said. He had arrived at Kitos under a flag of truce when the void-touch threat became clear. There are billions of people scattered across thousands of worlds. No telepathic network could reach them all. But Nari and Taiho were already working together, their combined abilities reaching out to touch other bonded pairs they had taught. The technique they had developed was spreading among both humans and Volanthi, who had learned to trust each other. We start with the pairs we already have, Nari said. Each bonded partnership can reach out to others near them. The network will grow exponentially. The plan required perfect coordination. While the Void-Touched continued their advance, consuming world after world, the Resistance began its most ambitious project ever. Teams of bonded humans and Volanthi spread across the galaxy, teaching others how to form the protective connections. It was not easy. Many Volanthi still refused to accept human consciousness as equal to their own. Many humans could not forgive the suffering they had endured. But as the Void-Touch drew closer, survival instincts overcame prejudice. Lord Hyunwoo became one of their most effective teachers, sharing the revelation he had experienced with other Volanthi nobles. Some accepted the truth immediately. Others required more persuasion. But gradually, the network of connected minds began to grow. Queen Yuna, meanwhile, had realized the horror of what she had unleashed. The Void-Touched had consumed her palace, her court, and most of her remaining loyal forces. She fled to the outer system, carrying with her the ancient royal artifacts that contained the combined power of generations of Volanthi rulers. "I can help you," she told Elder Kyung-suk when she arrived at the Primarch stronghold. "I have the power crystals. The accumulated telepathic energy of 100 queens. You would trust us with that power?" the Elder asked. "After everything that has happened?" Yuna looked older than her years, worn down by guilt and desperation. "I was wrong about everything. About humans, about the Empire, about what makes us strong. If there is a chance to save what remains of our people, I will take it." The final battle began when the Void-Touched reached the core worlds of both human and Volanthi civilization. Their dark ships surrounded planets like hungry clouds, reaching out with tendrils of pure entropy to drain the life from every thinking being. But they encountered something they had never faced before. Instead of isolated individual minds, they found a vast network of interconnected consciousness. Humans and Volanthi thinking together, sharing strength and knowledge across impossible distances. Nari and Taiho stood at the center of the network, their bond serving as the primary conduit for the galaxy-spanning connection. Through them, a human engineer on one world could share solutions with a Volanthi scientist on another. A Volanthi artist could inspire human creativity across star systems. The barriers between species dissolved in the face of absolute necessity. "It is working," Taiho said as they felt the network stabilize. "But we need more power to drive them back completely." Queen Yuna stepped forward, holding the ancient power crystals. "Take what you need," she said to her daughter. "I give you my authority, my strength, and my apology for everything I have done wrong." Nari accepted the crystals, feeling the accumulated telepathic power of her ancestors flowing through her. But instead of keeping it for herself, she shared it through the network. Every connected mind in the galaxy suddenly blazed with enhanced ability. The effect on the Void-Touched was immediate and devastating. These creatures fed on individual consciousness, but the unified network was like trying to consume a star. The connected minds of billions of humans and Volanthi working together created a form of consciousness too large and complex for the Void to digest. One by one, the dark ships began to retreat. The Void-Touched pulled back from worlds they had been consuming, fleeing toward the empty spaces between galaxies where no conscious life existed to burn them. But victory came with a price. The effort of maintaining the galaxy-wide network was enormous. Many of the telepathic connections forged in desperation could not be sustained once the immediate threat passed. As the crisis ended, the question became, what kind of galaxy would emerge from the ashes of war? The answer came in the form of the Charter of Bonds, a document written jointly by humans, Volanthi, and Primarchs. It established new laws based on cooperation rather than domination, ensuring that no species would be enslaved again. Nari and Taiho became the first ambassadors of the new galactic government, their unique bond serving as a model for others to follow. They established schools where humans and Volanthi could learn to form partnerships, and research centers where both species worked together to understand the universe. "Do you ever regret leaving your old life?" Taiho asked Nari as they stood on the observation deck of their new orbital headquarters, watching ships from dozens of species dock peacefully together. "Never," Nari replied, her hand finding his. "I was never truly alive until I learned to think with someone else." Below them, their children played with other hybrid youngsters, their minds naturally bridging the gap between human and Volanthi consciousness. They represented the future, a galaxy where the artificial barriers between species had fallen, replaced by bonds freely chosen and mutually beneficial. Queen Yuna, pardoned for her crimes in recognition of her final sacrifice, had established a memorial center where the history of both human enslavement and Valanthi oppression was preserved. She spent her remaining years teaching young Valanthi about the mistakes of the past, ensuring they would never be repeated. Commander Wu Jin, meanwhile, had become one of the most effective advocates for human-Valanthi cooperation. His unique perspective as someone who had lived on both sides of the conflict made him valuable in helping others overcome their prejudices. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still misunderstandings, still those who preferred the old ways of separation and suspicion. But the network of consciousness that had saved everyone from the void touched remained as a permanent reminder of what cooperation could achieve. And in the deeper darkness beyond the galaxy's edge, the void touched waited and watched. They had been defeated but not destroyed. Someday they might return, but when they did, they would find a galaxy prepared for them, a galaxy where billions of minds could unite as one, creating light too bright for any darkness to consume. The princess who had escaped her palace to bond with an outcast human had become something neither species had imagined possible. She had become the bridge between worlds, the proof that understanding could triumph over fear, and the guardian of a future where no thinking being would ever face the darkness alone. In the end, that was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. Not superior technology or military might, but the simple, revolutionary idea that different species could think together, dream together, and build something greater than any of them could achieve alone.